Okay, well, we can get started as people kind of file in throughout the time that we have here together. So yeah, I just really wanted to have this story sharing session because I thought it would be really valuable for our returning farmers to share their experience with a few of our new farmers. And I just kind of wanted this to be very loose, open conversation piece between all of us. And for our new farmers to be able to have the opportunity to ask our returning farmers that have been farming at Big River Farms for a year or more, just to ask any questions they may have, because I know farming, like your first year farming, can feel very overwhelming, maybe a little intimidating and exciting, and there's a lot of questions, and I just think it's really valuable to be able to be in this space to connect with these returning farmers and just have this conversation. And we are recording, so for those that could not make it, they'll be able to watch the recording as well. So yeah, I know that we have a few of our returning farmers in this call, so I guess I would just like to start off with some introductions and sharing your farm name if you have one, and then also sharing if you farm alone or as a team, and how many years you've been at Big River Farms and what you're most excited for growing this season. So I would like the returning farmers to share that information, and I will put those in the chat as well. And we can start off with, how about we start with Strong Heart Farms, Pierce and Eleanor.
Hi, I'm Eleanor, and this is Pierce, my husband. We are coming on to our second year of farming at Big River. So we started last year in 2021, and we farm as a team, although last year Pierce works for Big River Farms. So last year he worked full-time for Big River, and then I worked full-time for our farm that we're growing currently.
Yeah, Eleanor did most of the work last year. She was kind of a solo farmer, but I helped her as much as I could.
Yeah.
So she definitely held down the fort this last season, but this next season I'm only working part-time, so I'll be able to help Eleanor a bit more out in the field, which I'm excited for.
It'd be really nice.
Yeah. Was there any other questions?
Yeah, what was I missing?
Yeah, and what are you both most excited for this growing season?
Ooh. I'm really excited. We have a new plot. We're farming plot S. When you kind of see the field map, we're kind of on like the south side on plot S, and that's 2 acres. That wasn't farmed last year. It was in solely cover crop. So I'm really excited to put that under production, and we just drew out our field map for this next year, and we're really excited to figure out where we're going to put everything. So
I'm excited to design an irrigation system for our new field because I find that fun.
I don't know.
Most people don't, but I enjoy it, so I'm excited for that.
Nice. Yeah, thank you for sharing. Awesome. How about we have Michael go next?
Hey Pierce, if you want to come do my irrigation, you're more than welcome to. If you're having fun with that, D said her too. So hey, plenty of fun for you to go around. So my name is Michael Berry. I farm with Kajua, and the name of our farm is Lifestyle Walk. This is my second year at Big River Farms. And I'm most excited to start some perennial crops, namely strawberries, raspberries, and rhubarb. Some things we're gonna plant this season. So
nice. That's exciting.
yeah.
Thank you for sharing. And then we'll have Dee go next. Oh, Dee, you're on mute.
Hi guys, I'm Dee. I farm with my mom, my husband, my kids, and my newest addition as well, my little girl. This will be our second year at Big River Farms. I am, excited to just get out there and, you know, put to use things that I learned this past year from, previous farmers, and hoping to learn more as well too, from, I'm sure, mistakes that we'll be making. And so just ready to get going again.
Nice. Thank you, Dee. Yeah, I guess I can kind of open it up to some of our newer farmers. If they have any questions right now, you can feel free to ask our returning farmers any questions that you may have, or I also have some questions. So I would like to open it up to our new farmers to ask some questions.
Can I ask? Can I ask some questions?
Yeah, you can go ahead.
I'm really excited about this, this year
Yeah.
especially. But so learning what you learned last year, what is like two main, I would say, so one, like market related skill that you are going to focus on for this year for your production, and then one just farm management skill that you are wanting to kind of focus on this year that you didn't really get to do last year, or that you feel like you have a better handle on your plan for this year. So it's like two questions. So a market question about your skill for production, and then your farm management plan for this year that you didn't really do well or didn't really get a chance to do, and this year you're planning on implementing.
That's a good question.
I guess I can, so for this year, a skill that I didn't do too well last year that, I learned, um, you know, and want to implement it better this year is record keeping, how to keep better records, not just records. I mean, because last year I had records, but it's just like, random all over the place. And if I were to go back, or if I were to, bring it to, for a loan, they're going to be like, no, I don't, they're not going to understand. So, basically keeping records where I could use it for the strength of the farm, for, any new endeavors that we may want to take on, and then for marketing wise, I think, just everywhere you go, talk about yourself, and, you know, just make yourself known so people know what you do, where you do it. And so that way, if, that way, if anything comes up, you're always on that person's first, go to, or first train of thought. So that way, if they need anything, they can reach back out to you.
We can go next. One thing we learned related to the market, we just kind of spent a lot of time learning about what staple crops people really enjoy. Last year, we just kind of grew like same amount of everything, and some things sold really well and some things didn't. And we had surplus of some things and we ran out of stuff, some things really quickly. So we're going to focus more on the crops that were really popular, that people wanted to eat, that people wanted to buy. Specifically, those are carrots, bunched carrots people love. So highly recommend growing lots of those. And this year we're also going to put salad mix into our operation. So we're going to try and do like weekly leafy green salad mix that's actually like productive and doing really well. So we're putting a lot of time and energy into that because people really like salad. They like fresh greens. So yeah, we kind of just learned what people like and how we can kind of support that and grow that for them.
Yeah, as for the management, like field management side of things, one thing we're doing differently this year is basically we divided our field into, I want to say there's like 12 or 13 sections of it. And each of those sections are basically going to have a crop family assigned to them. So it's called planting in crop blocks is like the official term. But basically, yeah, we're going to be planting in crop blocks, then we can more effectively manage our crop rotations, which is going to help us with disease and pest pressure. So I'm excited for that. And the farm where I learned most of my farming skills, that farmer, she didn't really do much crop blocking planting, but so I'm excited to try it out, and because it makes a lot of sense from a logical standpoint. So I'm assuming it will work out, but we'll see.
Yeah, and I think it'll make our plot so much more organized.
Yeah.
Last year I just threw a little bit of this, a little bit of that, like everywhere, and it
Right.
was kind of messy. So
Yeah. And that made like
Excited.
weeding hard.
yeah, weeding was
too.
hard,
Yeah. And
cultivation was
watering,
hard,
yeah.
replanting and flipping beds, it was all kind of messy. So we're gonna feel a little more streamlined this
Yes.
year with our crop blocks.
Please share that plan this way too, because I
Yeah.
learned from watching others, and then if it works with me, I like to, adapt it.
Yeah, absolutely. I can
Yes.
share some of those
So
resources.
yeah, definitely share it.
Yeah, that we used to build that for sure.
Yeah, say for me, this year, I really, I reduced the amount of variety I have, because at the market, people really didn't really care for that a whole lot of variety. I mean, there's some that was appreciated. For instance, I had two different types of collards, and most people only bought the one variety that I had, and so I was like, okay, well, I'm going to stick with that one and forget that other one, and that's going to make it simpler for records, for planning, and all sorts of things, because we were finding that having all those different varieties of different things of the same like type of crop was just time consuming as far as keeping the records of it. So it's just one of those back end things you don't think about beforehand until you actually get to it. So I'm glad I know that now. As far as like farm management, I didn't do very well at plot mapping at all last year. And same thing, Eleanor, like we were just putting stuff wherever we could put it and trying to like piece it together as we go of like, oh no, wait, we can't plant that with this. So I think I have a much more solid plan. It's much more thorough. It's much more thought out coming into this season than last season. So.
Yeah, thank you all for sharing. It's really nice to hear how you've learned from like some of your, I guess, mistakes, or just learn by doing last year and kind of implementing new things this year. And I think that's just kind of how farming is, like having to adapt and change to, the year. And yeah, it's just really, really good to hear that. And Boris, did you have a question earlier?
No, I don't have question. I'm just
Okay.
listening. I don't remember the name. As she said, you learn even the people see and what they do, and so I'm visual also to learn. So I'm
Okay.
collecting what the people saying.
Yes, yeah. Thank you. Yeah, are there any other questions from new farmers or returning farmers to other returning farmers?
So Warris, as this, like I said, this is our second year. Last year, as a new farmer at Big River Farms, I just wanted to let you know that if you see anything that other farmers are doing that you like, do not hesitate to just, go up to that farmer in their field, or call them up or email them and say, hey, I saw you doing that. What is it? Can you teach me? and just how to get things going. So that way, that's what that was me. I was curious about everything, and anything that I saw anyone doing that I think might be useful for me, I went up to that person and either have them show me how to do it or whatnot. Because last year, like Waku, one of our older farmer at Big River Farm, he showed me how to put up sprinklers. May showed me how to do drip tape and bunch of other stuff. And so just if you see something you like, ask. Don't hesitate. There's no, oh, I'm gonna bother that person if I ask them to help me. There's none of that at Big River Farm. Okay.
Oh, thank you. We came, river farm, and this year we are the place we are going to do it. So, like, we're not the people who kind of shy people. We know how to, go to people and ask a question, and we're gonna learn, the experience. We're exchanging our own experience. So that's how we gonna grow, all of us farmers. We mean, I think. Yeah, thank you very much. So we will see you there this year.
Yeah, definitely. That is the beauty of being on a communal farm. I know when I was gardening at a community garden, it was just so fascinating to see how other people planted things, and it was just nice to be able to ask questions and learn from some of the elder gardeners. And I mean, that's the same sort of setting here, is like you can go around and ask other farmers why they practice certain things or why they grow a certain crop a certain way. That's really the beauty of being able to farm at Big River Farms. I mean, just one of the many things, but yeah, it's really exciting. Okay, I guess I can bring up a question. What was one major challenge you had your first year farming, and how did you overcome that challenge?
I'm gonna go first just so that I don't step on anybody else's toe. So for us, it was weeding. So because I was heavily pregnant as well too throughout the seasons that required more work at the farm, and so um, our weed was just crazy to the point where we just started bringing our weed whacker and whacking in between the rows just so that we have can walk and still be able to harvest um, our produce. And so I don't know if I'll ever overcome weed, but that was one thing. But this year, I think we're planning to just uh, do a lot more, uh, be more proactive when the weeds are still, in their um, early growth stage, taking care of that before it gets too over the top and out of hand. Because sorry, I cannot say his name right. How do you say it?
Porfirio?
Porfirio, yes. I don't know what he does, but he was right next to me, and that they have no grass ever. So I need to talk to them on what they're doing right. So talk to him if you have weeding issues too.
Don't do that, Dee. Don't do what he's doing. Because what he's doing is he's tilling in between every row. What you want to do is actually mow or mulch.
Okay.
Because when you till between each row, I mean, you actually end up compacting it over time, and then it's just not good. So it looks good that the year that you're in, and it reduces the weeds. So it's really effective for weeds, but it's actually not good for the soil.
For the overall.
So for the following year, it's not going to be really that great for you. But you're right. But what he's doing really well is his consistency and how he does it, right? Like he's out there all the time with his community, his friends and family, and they just get it done. So at least that, I tell Porfirio, like, I love that he can just do it and get it done. But kind of working with him and all the, also a few of our other farmers to not overtill, because when you overtill, then it just makes it so compact for next year for you, and you're not really setting yourself up for success the following year.
One way around that too could be using landscape fabric in the rows. I know it's kind of an investment, but if you were able to find like a solid one that would maybe even hold up for more than 1 year, that could be an option too, to kind of cut down the weeding in between the rows.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we can speak to weeds too. Honestly, that probably was like our #1 challenge. Like I know there was other challenges that I could speak to, but weeds and water were a really big challenge last year, especially with our drought. We had a really intense like 4-week drought in June last year. There was no rain, I think, for 4 straight weeks. And that was really tolling. And not only was it like no rain, it was just like 90 degrees all the time. So, and that was like really atypical. It might not happen this year, but yeah, weeds were definitely a little bit of a struggle this year to overcome weeds and just to kind of help us manage them a little bit better. Pierce has put together kind of a weeding tractor system. I'll let you speak to that.
Sure. Yeah. So for this season, we have a cultivating tractor. It's just a really small tractor that you ride on top of, but it's designed specifically for weeding. And you're able to kind of switch out the different tools that are on it. But yeah, typically it's always either you're weeding with it or maybe you're seeding with it. But anyways, basically the design is that our all of our vegetable beds are about 35 inches wide. And then I set up 3 rows of weeding. So like one row's at about like 16 inches, that's our middle row. Another one is at like 7 inches, and then the other one is 7 inches on the other side of that middle row. So we're going to try to be consistent with our planting this season to, some vegetables have 3 rows, some vegetables have 2 rows, some vegetables have 1 row. But we're going to try to stay consistent on where we're planting those in our beds. So then we can, regardless of if there's 3 rows, 2 rows, or 1 row of the vegetable, we can use the same tractor to kind of weed everything. That's the idea. We'll see if it works.
Yeah, so we're gonna try that for in row, like on the bed weeding. And then last year, one thing we did do is in the aisles, we planted a cover crop. So while we were prepping our entire field, we planted oats and clover and rye throughout our aisles and let them germinate. And then we actually mowed our aisles, the cover crop in our aisles, every week. And in the beginning, it got a little out of hand because we weren't expecting it to grow very quickly, but it did. But I want to say like mid-July through like beyond, I think I mowed or Pierce mowed like once a week. And that really helped manage the weeds. It also allowed us to like return some organic matter to the soil and just secure like the soil in those aisles so there wasn't any runoff, the water wasn't taking anything away. And I think we're definitely going to do that again. The cover cropped aisles like helped really like because the cover crop germinates quicker than the weeds, like the oats and rye competes with the weeds. So then that was like the primary thing in our aisles versus like random grasses. So that's what we're going to do this year is we're going to have the in row like weeding tractor set up and then cover cropped aisles to help us manage that. So it didn't look super beautiful last year, but hopefully it'll look good this year. We have a plan. Yeah.
Yeah, water was definitely a big challenge last year. I had a plan and it didn't work starting out to use sprinklers. And then I got out to my field. I'm like, the furthest crop I have away from the water spout is 400 yards or 400 feet. So, having 400-foot hoses all the way out that way and trying to get, 6-7 sprinklers set up, it just, like if I turned more than 2 sprinklers on, the water would just fall right there at the sprinkler. It just wasn't getting the amount of, it wasn't a pressure issue. I think it was just, I can't really like explain it. I think like Pierce kind of knows what was going on with that, but so we had to switch it out in July to a lay flat system or drip irrigation, which worked much better, covered the entire field much more consistently. But by that time, I mean, we spent so much time just getting that thing set up in the middle of its already going season. And that's kind of how those weeds became a huge problem. So there was a few different problems going on at the same time, but water is definitely one of them. So hopefully we have a better season. We get more rain. I mean, that's one of those uncontrollable factors you just never know about. But I think we do have that drip irrigation system now, so we can get that set up a lot sooner. And hopefully I can mitigate the effects of that drought if it happens again.
Yeah, thank you for sharing those experiences. Yeah, I know last summer it was just, there was that drought, and I personally, I was, like I was mentioning earlier, I was gardening at a community garden and we didn't have a water system there. So we all had to like haul our own water from our houses and like fill like huge jugs of water and bring water to the community garden every day pretty much, which was really challenging. And that's just the thing with like growing in Minnesota. It's very, you just kind of never really know what the summers are going to be like because there's so many extremities with growing in Minnesota. But I mean, there's also like beauty in that too, of just kind of adapting to the weather and the climate that we have here. And we have such a short season, but you can grow so much and there's so much abundance during that season. And yeah. Are there any questions or topics that people would like discussed?
Hi, I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, great. I just want to say thank you all for your wisdom and sharing for your experiences farming at Big First. Some of you said it started last year. As we are coming this year, our first year, can you share a little bit more about your success, easy starting beginning for your farming journey as of you today and your challenges? And as well, earlier this morning, I didn't have chance to talk to Kristen and the other, I don't remember all the names. They really, really talked about a lot of the CSA and the passion and the work, the hard work they're doing. And one of the person, I don't remember her name, mentioned if you are farming, doing like a quarter acre, you can easily make up to $30,000. When we think about dollar amount, we're spending a lot of time and energy. And some of us who are very beginners, really trying to figure it out. How do you direct that side of the world when you have to spend money to make money? And how did that work? How is it for you guys going as someone who's been farming, and you guys are doing a farmers market? So I'm putting questions about how are you doing, how things going for you as of this second year. Thank you.
As far as like looking at it from a business standpoint, I can share that financially, I operated at a loss of about $2,000 last season, first season. Just from having to purchase some major purchases that I just wasn't planning for. And then just not really getting enough crops out in the market. So, and that all like compounded with all the different mistakes that I made too. And then like some of those, like I kind of expected, I was like, we're either we'll be at a slight profit or we'll be break even with as much tools and things that we needed in our first season, especially with the irrigation system, which is, if you're going to purchase a drip irrigation system, it could be a very expensive initial investment, but it will be worth it long term. But initially it could be pretty expensive. I can't tell you off the top of my head how much we paid. But it's a tool that you're gonna need, especially if we got a drought like we did last season. And then there's those other things that are expensive. So if you are thinking about like a fabric to block weeds in each aisle, I mean, you're looking at 30 something beds, most beds are 50 feet on average. That could be pretty expensive. So there's something to think about, like the cost that you're going into this. And like, if I could do this all over again, starting over, like try to plan for every possible scenario that you could think of. What are you gonna do when this happens? What are you gonna do when this happens? What are you gonna do when this happens? If you don't know, you're gonna be trying to figure out something last minute. It's probably gonna be more expensive for you. So I'm hoping to turn that turn my expenses around a little bit and get in the green. So, but I think we will. I mean, we're set up to do something a lot different. So, I'm thinking about a part of that too is just thinking about expanding your market opportunities. How can you get more produce into more people's on more people's tables? So we're adding some like direct to consumer sales. Not like we're not setting up a CSA just yet. But we had enough people in our lot, like in our community, like neighbors, people next door, down the street, people that we know who said, yeah, we'd buy a box from you every week. Just let us know what you got and we'll support you in that way. So that's kind of a way to get started. These are people that we probably knew. I don't know, they probably wouldn't be really commit to something like early in the season, like a CSA does, where they say, well, we'll pay you up front. And we're not, like, I'm not all that confident in doing it anyway. I'm like, I need to get to a point where I'm producing consistently before I, start wanting to do contracts with people to do something like that. But we have enough of a interest to do some direct to consumer sales. So we're going to start doing that too. So I hope that kind of answered your question.
Yeah, thank you.
For us, it was kind of opposite yours, Michael, because you know before we started farming there as commercial farmers at Big River Farm, I've been out there for the past 5-6 years now as well too, helping with my aunt and Hopa's garden, and so I they have always encouraged my mom to get it going, because whether we did commercial or not, she was always farming at least 2 acres every single summer, and so that's actually why we started this farm, or I started this farm for her, so that way she can um you you know share what she's growing with other people in the community as well, not just her children and our relatives. And so when we started, I talked to my cousin, I talked to Hompa, and I kind of asked her, like how much we would need, but she was so busy, so I never really got a certain number from her at all. But at the beginning, our goal was, I'd be happy if we make $10,000 over the summer, just to cover our startup costs, and so last year we got almost an acre. And so, as one thing that I would tell new farmers is, um, don't wait until your second year or your third year to start selling at farmers market. I took advantage because Matt, he's super great about sending you market opportunities, and so every time there's a market opportunity out there that is free, I like it when it's free. I reach out to them, and if it's if it's not in conflict with the other main markets that I'm doing, then I sign up for it, because the only way you can learn is by going to it and learning from your mistake. I call it failing forward, so that way and so at the end of our season, just trying to put ourselves out there as much as we can. We actually went 20,000 over our goal, and so it was really good. And so same thing again this year is whatever you do, try to put yourself out there, you know, and if, well, to what you can do. Don't, you know, extend yourself too thin that you exhaust yourself to the point where you end up not being able to accomplish anything as well too. And so I totally don't remember what the question is anymore. Pass it on to you, Pierce.
Can I give a quick market shout out before you jump in, Pierce?
Sorry.
I was going to say, can I give a quick market shout out before Pierce jumps in? I was going to say, thanks for mentioning the markets, Dee, and the farmers markets as like a good opportunity for new farmers to start off with. I was just going to share that Big River Farms has some market opportunities internally that we manage if you're a farmer with access to land in our program this season and you're just starting off. Connect with me after this storytelling session and we can talk more about it. But I just wanted to quickly share that we have our CSA program. So if you're interested in growing a few crops for that, let's connect after this and talk about what that might look like. We apply as an organization to the Kingfield Farmers Market in South Minneapolis. And so if you're interested in selling at farmers markets, but maybe don't feel comfortable yet applying as an individual, you could be a part of that group and choose, you know, like maybe 3 to 5 times throughout the summer and fall season to go and sell at that farmers market with some support from us as staff. And the third thing I'll mention is we have a new food shelf purchasing program, which is more of a wholesale bulk buying program within the food group, the larger nonprofit that our farm is a part of. So there's some funding there and some potential market opportunities too. Even if you're in your first year in the program at Big River Farms and have land at our farm. So follow up with me afterwards if you're interested in any of those markets and we can talk more about them.
All right.
That's
I don't know.
great. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you.
All right. I don't know where I want to start, so I guess I'll just start talking and we'll see where it goes. So yeah, first year farming, we definitely made a lot of investments the first season. So like for example, so we bought an old delivery van, you know, just from like Craigslist for delivering our vegetables you know, down to the cities. We did buy like 2 old tractors from like the 1940s. I wouldn't recommend buying tractors your first season. I would say the only reason we did buy those was because we know we want to be in farming for like the rest of our lives. So that's one reason. Like, and then the other reason is they were just a good price and they were good. They were like a good quality.
Pierce was really excited about the tractors. We also knew that we wanted to be at tractor scale.
That's true,
for
yeah.
most of our lives farming.
Mhm.
2 to 3 acres, 4 to 5 acres, like kind of in that range,
Yeah.
which is too big to do hand scale well efficiently.
With 2 people.
Yeah, with 2 people. And we want to stay a pretty small farm team
Mhm.
for a while. I mean, eventually we'll hire people, but it'll be just us 2 for the next 5 years probably. So we knew tractors were the way that we wanted to go. So we just decided right off the bat that we would invest in them.
Yeah.
Which, like Pierce said, probably not generally recommended, but that was our personal decision.
Yeah.
So
What else did we buy? Then we bought some other just like kind of like we bought a potato seeder and a potato digger. Those ones are cool. They're from the 1920s. They're like all like cast iron and metal. They're designed to be pulled by horses because they didn't have tractors back then, but they work great. We used them this season at some other land that we rent and they were great. So maybe that's one piece of advice is, you know, when you are looking for tools, don't be afraid to, you know, maybe think about tools from like the 1920s or from the 1940s. Because back then farms were generally a lot smaller than they are today. Because today, you know, a farmer might have, you know, a couple thousand acres, whereas back then, you know, maybe they had 20 or 50 acres. So a lot of the times, looking at those tools from the 1920s, 30s, and 40s are a little bit more applicable to the kind of scale of farming that we're at.
Mhm.
money wise, I guess I can share some of those numbers. We're getting ready to do our taxes, so I have all that stuff handy. I'll just share some of those numbers just so folks kind of can have an idea. We had 3/4 of an acre out here at Big River. So I'll just kind of share those costs associated with that land. So like fertilizers and like soil mix, we spent about $2,000 on. Seeds and plants, we spent about $2,000 on. Various like supplies and tools, so that includes like irrigation, just like some shovels, some weeding tools,
The tractors and the implements that included all of that.
Yeah, I guess
It's a really
I was
big
gonna
number.
subtract that because that's
Okay.
kind of so. Yeah, just with like
Yeah.
what else would be, I guess like some vegetable harvest totes and
Yeah.
boxes, things like that. That was about $3,000. Marketing, so what did that include?
It was like farmers market tents, market
Oh, yeah.
display things. We also bought a website domain,
Oh, sure.
which was an investment, marketing materials like business cards and
Mhm.
flyers and things like that.
Yeah.
That was probably another $2,000 roughly
Yeah.
to make that happen. So
Yeah. And I guess those are just some of the categories we need for our taxes. So if you want more details, feel free to ask. We're happy to share that information if that's helpful to you.
Mhm.
I don't know, anything else we need to share right now? I feel like we've been talking for a while, so maybe.
Yeah, those are just
Yeah.
numbers that like we kind of spent. I mean, we definitely did not make an income, if anyone is wondering. This
No.
last year, we
Mhm.
invested a lot up front,
Mhm.
and they're things that we're going to be using for the next like 5-6 years, maybe longer.
Yeah.
So that is why like our first year was not profitable, because we invested so much in infrastructure and just things that we thought we were going to need. It definitely doesn't have to be that way.
Right.
There's all sorts of ways to go about it.
Mhm.
Luckily, like a lot of these costs can be dispersed over 3 or 4 years.
Mhm.
So our profitability will kind of change as the year goes. Because this year, going into this season, already we've spent like so much less, and we don't have much more that we need to make this year happen. So,
Yeah.
and we already have more market outlets, and we're feeling more confident in our ability to farm productively. So I
Yeah.
think we'll feel a little bit better going into this season. It'll be interesting to compare
Mhm.
last year to this year at the end of the season. So
Yeah.
we'll keep you tuned.
Definitely.
I just want to say thank you so much for sharing that, because that helps us to, as a new farmers coming to Big River Farm, the struggle is real. I really appreciate that. It's great that you guys are spending all your money now, but expecting and something will come back hopefully this year or next year. I think it's really decision you have to plan. And sometimes as a new farmer and you're trying to figure it out, how do you get those few $1,000s to invest early on when you don't know where to look at it? Do you know any somebody helped you to gain for this few $1,000s, or this was your hard money? Because sometimes when you don't have, it's going to be hard. So I just want to say thank you so much for sharing for that information. It's something that we will think about it and talk about it and plan on it. Thank you so much.
I'll just add in there too. So like Eleanor and I, we've been in the farming world. Well, I'm going into my 5th season. She's going into her about 3rd season. So we knew even when we first started farming, we knew that we wanted to start our own farm at some point. So we have been saving money for about the last 3 years before we started our farms. That's kind of where we had some of that investment money, I guess, like those startup costs.
A lot of it was personal savings,
Yeah.
and we definitely haven't lived like a traditional lifestyle. We've lived with our parents, we've lived at other farms where rent was free, and we kind of had mitigated some of those life costs
Mhm.
just through the lifestyle that we chose to live going into this dream that we knew we had. So I think that for us, that was kind of how we got here, that path that we were taking. And I know that's not accessible for everyone, and it's not where everyone's coming from.
Right,
So
right.
just finding those
Depending on your
alternatives,
situation.
talking to people, and knowing your situation well enough to be able to move forward with that is really important.
and one thing to add to that also is that being that, so like I've farmed basically my whole life because my parents farmed and their parents farmed. Um, but we never wanted to, we've never, considered going commercial. And so we never started saving up for it at all. That's why I love Big River Farm, is because they have all the equipment there already for you. So the big those, because those are going to be the big, investments that eventually, if you want to farm long term, you'll save up for yourself. But at the beginning, Big River Farm has it all. So don't worry about those yet. You can start planning and start saving for it in the future years to come. The one thing that, as beginning for beginners, last year that we spent um, a lot of money on, that I didn't calculate at all, was our hoses. We spent probably $800 just on hoses alone, just because we were like way out there. And to get to, from the water to our land was already like 200 feet. And then the, the half acre that we were on there was also 200 feet long. So we had to get another 200 feet hoses. And then it's, and it's not just one that, and that's it. You have to have multiple, because if you just have that one hose, you're going to drag that 200-foot hose all over that farm. And that alone takes time. It can take, I think the first time I did it, no experience, it took me 2 hours just to not, and I wasn't even able to water, half an acre. And so we ended up buying like 10 to 12 100 feet, 150-foot long hoses. And so that's it. That's the only thing that you need to mainly save for: seeds and the hose. That's it. Or your watering drip tape system. Everything else, leave it to Big River Farm.
So I hear you guys talk issues about waters and was it weeds. How do you guys handle, in your experience, how do you guys handle pesticides or pestilence and other things that are similar to that? What's your success story on that, to keep so that your vegetables and your crops would still be considered, I don't know, maybe still consider organic, and it's still consider nice and beautiful for your customer?
For us, I think because I don't like using chemicals at all if possible to do anything with um the plants or the vegetables. Like even with adding fertilizers, I'm still iffy on that too. And so with the only thing that we did for pests was uh, when our squashes were still very little, um, we used the product that Big River Farm has. I think it was Sustain, right? Um, and I think I sprayed it once, no, 2 times over a 1 month period. But that was way before they were even close to, ready um, for harvesting for markets. After that, I actually just, you know, let the weather do its thing, and I really didn't have that much issue with like leafy greens. The only thing though that I did not get anything out of was my bell peppers. The pest, for some reason, it got to it, and my bell peppers I never got to eat one of them. But I only planted like uh 40 foot, so that wasn't too sad.
Yeah, pests can be a little bit tricky. Pierce and I take the approach that we want to be completely chemical free. We just don't spray anything like ever. And I know that there are certified organic things that you can use to help manage certain pests. We just decided not to. And we definitely felt pest pressure, specifically from cucumber beetles, squash beetles, and flea beetles were kind of the three main ones that actually decimated or like truly felt some crop loss. We didn't plant a ton of those things last year, and then we experienced like a lot of crop loss and we didn't get very large harvests. This year, I guess we're just gonna plant more and hope we get a little bit more of a yield, plant some for the bugs, plant some for ourselves, and hope it all works out, I guess. I know that pest management generally can be supported by growing healthy plants. So if you're more focused on how to grow like a plant with a really healthy immune system, you're gonna have less pest pressure than if you just like grow them however you want, you see the pest and then you try and do something about it. It's more of the preventative care. So if you can build your soils to be really strong and nutrient dense, and you can build your soil food web, the microbes in there to be strong, you're gonna have healthier plants, which will be more resistant naturally to pests. So that is what Pierce and I are gonna be working on this next year, is figuring out the best ways to build our soil first before we plant everything. And I know we're going to be talking about this a little bit more in some upcoming classes, and we'll be able to provide some more resources on that. It's just something Pierce and I do a lot of research on. Just in general, we watch a lot of YouTube videos and attend lots of little classes. So if you're looking at how to build like the strongest, most resilient plants, just like start reading articles online and start looking at YouTube videos and just kind of get yourself in that mindset of like, okay, I need to build a healthy plant so that it doesn't have pest problems, instead of like, oh, I just grow, and then if I have the pest problem, what do I do to fix that?
Yeah.
So it's a mindset, but it's also like some tactics. So I don't know if you want to add to that. That was
No,
kind
I
of
think
a lot, but
you did a good job of summarizing it.
yeah. So that's kind of our like main mindset on pest management in general.
Yeah, my thoughts on pests are just after 1 year of farming, and even after like watching everybody else, pests are they're a natural part of the ecosystem, especially in organic farming. They're gonna be there, above ground, underground. The underground ones I was really surprised to have to deal with on my plot last season. I had so many gopher traps and stuff set up. I mean, they were taking whole tomato plants underneath, and I had this beautiful system laid out with my tomatoes, and then I would show up and have like 4 of them just empty where I planted tomatoes. And I'm like, how do you just take a whole tomato plant that's already 1.5 feet tall? And that just irritated me so much. But I think what Eleanor and Pierce were saying is great. You're going to plan for some of that loss by planting a little more than what you would actually need. And so luckily we had extra tomatoes, and I can just, all right, I put a plant where that was just taken out, and try to get a trap in that hole to catch those. We didn't spray anything either. We did try to use some things like diatomaceous earth. It didn't really work that well, especially with those flea beetles. I think it might have deterred some of them, but cucumber beetles, they just wrecked all of our squash. It was tough. As the season progressed, though, the thing that we did notice was that having this is where I'm kind of like reviewing like how we did, because I had so much variety in my field that I had a ton of beneficial insects too. And I think as the season progressed, it was like, well, those other beneficial insects are in there, and they're helping kind of mitigate those pests too. So it's just something you gotta learn as you go, and then walk around the farm and see what everybody else is doing. Like Kristen had yellow jugs hung up in her farm and was catching those beetles. And I was like, oh, okay, that's something I might try. and you'll see Christina out there burning sage or whatever she was doing. So everybody's got like different techniques to deal with pests, and we're just it's a tough thing. They're out there. They're probably not going away anytime soon. But yeah, all of the things that you can do to mitigate it, improving your soil health, catching them as you can, like all of those things. Just do as much as you can with it, keeping your weed pressure down, all that stuff is going to help you mitigate your pest pressure.
That reminds me, May told me that her husband chewed brought his vacuum out there. So funny. Sucking it all in.
Yeah, everybody's got an approach. I mean, I was so frustrated my first season. I'm like, this must be an off year or something. But it's what I hear, it's pretty regular out here at Big River. So just know you're gonna have to use like more than one different strategy to try to deal with it. So
Can I ask a couple follow-up questions, Becca?
Yeah, go for it. Yep.
I'm curious if any of you who have been farming for a while have experience with companion planting. You just made me think of it, Michael, talking about beneficial insects. If you have experience with companion planting specifically for more of a natural pest management approach. And then from a financing perspective, if any of you have experience applying for grants for some of those startup costs or to get some of that capital up front.
Those are really good questions too. I don't have a ton of experience with companion planting. I know there are tactics. I don't know how well they work, and I haven't really seen or done them myself. I know at like our last farm, she would always plant like a row of carrots and a row of onions and a row of carrots and a row of onions. She kind of had like, I don't know, her little thing. And I don't know, there might be some more research on like what goes well. I know Kristen this last year planted dill, like she would stick a dill plant right next to all of her brassicas, so like kale and Asian greens, because she thought that would help repel the flea beetles. I don't know how well it worked. You'd have to ask her. But that was another thing. We planted basil under our tomato plants last year to kind of help. That's like a very classic companion thing. And I don't know if it worked for pest management. All I know is that we just didn't get a basil harvest because the tomatoes shaded over our basil, which was unfortunate. So, I mean, if we plant it next year, it would only be for pest management, and we'd have a separate basil plot for actual harvest of basil. So I can't speak too much to companion planting. I wish I could. But I can speak a little bit to grants. Pierce and I have applied for a few grants this season, going into this season. And it's a new experience for us. We have done a lot of research trying to figure out like, okay, what do we need funding for and how can we apply? I know for first year farmers, it can be a little bit more tricky to find funding on that first season. A lot of people won't fund people who don't have experience or like don't have a lot of like evidence saying I need this funding. So I know that can be really tricky. If you do find a grant though for first year farmers, like by all means do it, apply for it, like call Matt, call someone to like help you get through that, or Kazua has a ton of grant writing experience, like definitely make that happen. Yeah, but yeah, we've applied for a couple of grants this year. We'll see how they go.
Yeah, there are a couple organizations I know of too. Well, I shouldn't say I know of. I've just seen them. I forget their names right now, but they do have some advertisements specifically for farmers who are applying for grants, where like they'll help you write your grants for free. If I think of the names, I'll put them in the chat, but yeah, they're not coming to my mind right now.
Yeah. And I definitely don't want to discourage you from like looking for grants. Like I think the biggest thing is just like getting on the internet and like Googling like grants for first year farmers, grants for beginning farmers, you know, things like that. And calling people, just seeing where you can get that type of funding. I know there's a lot of co-ops in the cities that do grants for farmers. We recently applied to the Lake Winds one. They have a field fund that we applied for. Mill City Farmers Market does a big grant
But
for
that one you have
farmers.
to have.
That one you have to have experience. So a second year farmer would be really good to like look into that one. We just applied for, what was that one called? The National Young Farmers Coalition,
I think so.
a grant from them. And they actually do grants for first year farmers, but I know their season is
Their
closed.
deadline is passed.
Yeah. And Compeer Financial also, I can like write all these in the chat too, if like you want to look these up. They also have a lot of grants, but their deadlines are in October. So yeah, it's just kind of like thinking ahead, like really early, like what do I need? Because you have, most of the time when you apply for a grant, you have to give them like a very specific cost breakdown analysis. So they know what you're going to be spending the funds on. Yeah, I don't know. Does anyone else have anything to share about that?
So one thing that we did last year, kind of companion planting, but it wasn't as organized as I have it this year. So I'm actually planning to have companion plants in just about every bed that I'm planting this year. And mostly the companion planting that I'm doing is herbs. Herbs and certain flowers. So like I've got oregano, I've got nasturtium, I've got dill, which is another good one. I've got like sage, cilantro, and I have a printout of a Beck. I don't know if you have this. This is like it's the chart that actually shows you which plants match well with which other plants and herbs. And everything in green, like dark green, will show you like which combinations are actually beneficial for bug control, which ones grow well together, and then the red squares kind of show you which combinations cannot grow well together. I got to find out where I got it from. Becca, I don't know if you have that or not.
I don't have that. No, that seems like a great resource.
I'm gonna find it and I'll share it with you.
That would be great. That'd be great to
Scan
have.
it in.
Yeah.
Scan it in the meantime.
Yeah. So and then I like my plot map. So yeah, I'm trying to plant. If I got a 36-inch bed and I got a row, like 2 rows of crops, I'm trying to plant something in the middle. So I'm trying to think about what herbs or something I can plant in the middle that would be beneficial to those plants and grow well and keep certain different types of bugs away. So that's kind of how I'm approaching it this year. A little more strategic with that. I'll see how it goes. But I'm hoping it's going to help with that a little bit. So, and then the way that I laid out each bed was kind of paying attention to those crop families. I don't particularly like have blocks similar to Pierce and Eleanor, but I did kind of strategically think about I'm going to grant my tomatoes in like nightshades, tomatoes, like all of those things, tomatoes, carrots, onions on one side of my field, and then I got something that doesn't work well with that on the other side of the field. So kind of keeping those plant families separate as you possibly can to make sure they're not interfering with each other's growth. So I'm gonna look for that right now and actually see if I can find it.
Dee, do you have anything to share?
We haven't tried companion planting and yet, and I think I tried applying for grant last year, but because we were first time commercial farmers, we didn't get anything. And then this year I haven't looked at any yet either. And so that's something that we're in the learning process of as well too.
Great. Yeah, Matt shared a few really good ones, and so did Pierce and Eleanor. They're in the chat. Yeah, it is so, I am finding this story sharing session to be so valuable. I am, sorry, I had a thought process and I just lost it. But yeah, it's just so fun to hear all the unique ways that each of you approach farming, and just like the different experiences you have. It's just really fun to learn, because I am someone that has been dreaming of farming, and yeah, I'm finding this really valuable. One day I hope to be a farmer myself, but still getting there. Yeah. Are there any other questions right now? I can ask another question that I have. Yeah, I guess I just have kind of like an overall question for all of you. What led you to farming? What was kind of the driving force that led you to wanting to take this path?
So for me, like I said, I've farmed growing up my whole life with my mom. Ever since I got married, though, which was going on 17 years now, I've actually stopped it's more of a harvesting within this past 17 years. We'd go and we would help harvest and bring home and store for the winter, over the winter, but it's never really the same, and so um, to me, I missed, farming with my mom, and every summer I would look forward to just the things that would come out of her garden for us for that year. And so that's why, after many years of encouragement from um, my aunt to, get this going, I did, because I wanted to, be able to, because I missed my mom's, the produce that my mom brought to us every single summer. I wanted to share that with, the people in my community as well too, because um, if it's mom approved, it's good, and so that's why, I started this farm business, uh, so that way we can share what we're doing with people in our community that, want that but may not have someone they know personally that are growing for them.
For me, I've never farmed before. This is my first time getting into it, dabble my feet in it. But my uncle and my aunt is giving up their business. They asked us to take over, but we've got no experience. No, I've never done any farming. My wife, she's done it when she was little, but um, after talking with a bunch of friends and relatives, and they said that, um, and then I've asked them how they do it, and they said that it's good, and you only work half of the year, and you get to enjoy the other half, and you get to eat, real vegetables. It has no chemicals and all that stuff. So I was intrigued, and I my wife and I, we want right now, we're planning to do it part-time to see how it is, to see how it goes, to see if this is something that we can uh, maintain or and work on it, and to see how that fit into our current schedule, and if this is something that we can convert into a full-time. So um, these are the reasons that we've considered, and hopefully taking these classes and hearing from you guys will be a big motivation for us to move forward. So
Thank you, Ku. It's
Mhm.
exciting.
Yeah, I love hearing everyone's stories on how they got here. I love how everyone's so unique and everyone has their own space to getting here. It's really special, or getting to where you want to be with farming. I think for me, I guess Pierce and I have probably a little bit different stories. So I guess we'll each share. For me, I didn't grow up with farming at all. I didn't grow up like knowing where my food came from at all, like no relationship. I grew up in the suburbs of Minnetonka, if anyone was wondering. So not far from here, but definitely a very disconnected from the food system and the food world in general. And I went to college at St. Ben St. John's and studied environmental studies, which was a really broad major, kind of just focused on lots of things that are wrong with the environment, things that are problematic and hard to fix. And I left feeling a little like, oh my gosh, like what am I ever gonna do to like help the earth and like work with the earth in a reciprocal way, and felt a little overwhelmed and daunted, and eventually like found my way to farming out in Oregon, because Pierce was out there and I like learned through that. And honestly, just being on a farm for 2 years and seeing on a farm a food producing space that was working with the land, you know, with in relationship with the land. It wasn't like a conventional farm at all. And just seeing the impact that had on the environment in so many ways, I just felt like I couldn't go back. I was like, oh my gosh, like everything in this type of farming in this space can heal a lot of the environmental issues that we deal with in general. And I just felt like that was where I had to put my energy into producing food that could nourish the community, but also nourish the earth and the land, and all these things that felt really like wrong when I came out of college. So yeah, I just feel like super drawn to it, and I want to stick with food producing for the rest of my life, hopefully.
Yeah, for me, I would say my first kind of the first domino in the farming story. I graduated from school. I was also environmental studies. So they basically taught us, you know, humans are horrible and we're destroying the world. And then they just send you out into the world and they don't tell you what to do. And how to fix all those issues. So I read a book called Pharmacology. I forget the author at the moment. But it basically was this book that really delved into organic farming and just how conventional farming plays a lot of, you know, a lot of roles in the detrimental roles, I guess, not only in the environment, but oh yes, there it is. Not only in the environment, but also just to like our individual health as well as like our health as a society. So that was the first thing that really kind of got me thinking about, oh, you know, farming, you know, maybe I should look into that more. I grew up in rural Minnesota, central Minnesota, surrounded by corn and soybeans. So I, you know, kind of grown up around conventional farming, but hadn't really thought of small scale farming before. But anyway, so I graduated from college. I got an office job for a year, decided that the office life wasn't for me. And I came across a beginning farmer education program in Oregon called the Rogue Farm Corps. It's a little different than the Big River Farmer education program. For that program, you actually lived and worked for a running organic farm to kind of learn the ropes of farming. But anyways, I decided to join that program. So I moved out to Oregon and ended up just kind of falling in love with farming. I spent about 3 seasons out there on it was about a 25-acre organic farm that did vegetables and cows and pigs and chickens and small scale grain. And they had like a restaurant. It was quite the little farm setup. Just fell in love with it and can't go back. So.
Yeah, for me, getting into farming, as Kajal shared with you guys, she's been farming for a long time. And she always has grown stuff in our backyard and like lots of different vegetables and stuff. And so I got into this as both as a way to be more connected with her, but also because I I I enjoy being in control of my own health and what goes into my body, and being able to share that with people and connect people to food in a way that they usually aren't, especially like my family, my community. So that's kind of why I'm doing this. Is a lot for health reasons and improving our control over what we eat. So yeah, that's why I'm in this.
Great. Thank you all for sharing. Yeah, it's so fun to hear all the unique stories. And if anyone else wants to share, feel free to turn on your camera and share with us what led you to farming and or what makes you excited about farming or growing your own food or purchasing local food in general.
I have a question.
Yes.
So this is more like to Big River Farm. And can you tell us more about how Big River gathered this strong support for new farmers and people farming? I'm sure you guys been doing, I don't even know how many years you've been doing. I'm sorry, I did not read, or maybe it's not part of discussion before if you guys talked about. And this wonderful project, Big River, who are you guys? And when I say who are you guys, it doesn't mean like I don't know you, but I'm part of who's going to be coming to your this season and hopefully next several years to be there. And also I want to know about Big River. Who's your main supporters and funders to continue your program to sustain this kind of programs to help other new farmers such as Safi and the ones who are here today? Thank you.
Yeah, good question. I'm wondering if Kazua, if you're there, I wonder if you can touch base a little bit on that question.
Yeah, I can talk a little bit about it, but for here, I'm really happy that you joined us, and we can have a separate discussion about this, but just quickly about the history of Big BRF Farms. So before we became a program of the food group, we were actually Minnesota Food Association, and it started in the early 1990s, and it was basically a resource to help immigrant farmers to get the land access and education and training in order for our new American farmers to be able to sell at the farmers market, because we know the history of America, and at the farmers market there was mainly majority white people, and they didn't want immigrant farmers really selling there because they were afraid that these farmers didn't understand food safety and things like that, and didn't want them to sell like produce that was gonna be bad and things like that. So basically a couple of community leaders came together and bought or started leasing this land with Wilder. And in 2017, we merged with the Food Group of Minnesota, which is a food bank, which is the organization that we are a part of. So a Minnesota Food Association was a nonprofit. It was a very small grassroots nonprofit. And I've heard stories about like, having one or two main people really doing a lot of the fundraising. So think about like your farm right now, and you're your own operator, and you're also your own accountant. You're your own, like you're doing a lot of stuff on a small scale as a farmer. But think about an organization trying to start up and support different groups, but not having the proper resources. And so Minnesota Food Association was like that, and funding was really challenging because they were smaller, and they didn't have a lot of like people to help do that work. And burnout was a really serious thing. Burnout is just a really serious thing for nonprofits in America, honestly. And so the food group kind of took it under its wings. And so Big River Farms became Big River Farms. So Big River Farms was the name of the farm. Minnesota Food Association was the organization. So when it merged with the food group, Big River Farms, we just took over the name or just had that name as part of the program. So for here, I think you should write those questions down, and for sure, I would love to just sit down with you and talk more about the whole process.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for your questions. Are there any other discussion topics? Anything else that anyone else wants to share or know more about?
I do have a question.
Mm-hmm.
And this is for all the farmers listening into this conversation. I'm just really loving and absorbing everything right now. But in regards to climate change, and even so, I have two questions. One, how do you feel about the name farmer, like being identified as a farmer, being called a farmer? Do you prefer being called a farmer, a producer, a grower, a land steward? The reason why I'm asking is because I'm exploring like so many programs through the United States Department of Agriculture and all these other big organizations that are supposed to be in support of farmers, but I'm finding it really challenging to get their language to be corrected for you guys. So small scale, for us, I should say us, because I'm also a farmer, but for small scale farmers, basically like really big, oftentimes when I'm in like meetings with the United States Department of Agriculture, when they talk about farmers, they're talking about row crop farmers, or they're talking about farmers who grow hundreds and hundreds of acres of corn and soybeans. They're rarely talking about small scale farmers like us. And so it's really challenging to have resources that are appropriate for your size. And so I'm wondering, how do you feel about that? What are your feelings about it? Like, you could just be really honest about it. And then two, in regards to climate change, it is a very serious issue. What are some things that you think that you will be doing this year to help with the climate crisis? And if you're okay with being called a farmer, absolutely fine. You know, there's nothing wrong with that name. It's just I'm just finding it really hard to challenge systems when the systems continue to not really recognize you as a special group of people who need special resources. Because I mean, when you guys start looking into crop insurance, and you're going to start finding it's really challenging to find crop insurance for your size of farming and your practices, come and talk to me. I would love to talk more about what kind of insurances are out there, because there's not that many for your scale. And there's a lot for really big farmers. And so that's why I'm like wanting to understand. That way I can take what your stories, your feelings, and your feedback, I could bring it to the Minnesota Department of Agriculture. I could bring it to Commissioner Peterson and all these people who are supposed to help oversee these resources for you. Yeah, so that's why I'm asking. But if you don't have any feelings about it, and that's okay too.
I have some feelings about it. I guess as for the term farmer, grower, personally for me, I'm gonna do what I want to do. I guess like I'm gonna be out here. I'm gonna be growing the food. I'm gonna be doing it for my community. I guess I don't necessarily care too much what they call me. That's a horrible answer, but I'll get to why. So currently I've been trying to work with the NRCS, who is let me think, what does it actually stand for?
National Resource Conservation Services.
There we go.
Thank
you,
you.
Kazua. Anyways, so they have some programs that are supposed to kind of help farmers, try different things on their farms. And anyway, so I've been talking with them for the last couple months, and over that time, I've basically learned that most of their programs are designed to like incentivize trying out more like sustainable farming methods.
For conventional farmers.
For
Like conventional
for
farmers wanting to
yeah.
switch. Yeah.
For conventional farmers, yeah, that's a good point. Definitely, they're more focused on like the large scale. So that's something that I've kind of ran into now at this point is there's some new programs, I guess, that are more applicable to kind of the 2-acre and smaller size. But they're new programs, and the NRCS staff people don't really know much about them. They've been helpful. That I will say, like they've been helpful, and they've been trying to kind of help me along the way. But so far, it seems like their programs definitely aren't tailored to small scale growers. And it's definitely something we need to think about and figure out. So it's a good question, Kazua. There's no easy answer.
Yeah, and the programs that Pierce is talking to, it's so interesting. They want to fund conventional farmers implementing sustainable practices on their fields, but they won't fund farmers who are already doing that. People who are already putting compost on their field, they don't want to fund that compost because they know that you're doing the right thing, and you're doing the right thing. So they're not, it's like there's no incentive for them to like fund you because you're already doing the right thing. So it's a very interesting kind of dynamic they have. And that does kind of put us in like an interesting place as to like, what are we? Are we the conventional farmers that can be, incentivized or not? It is really interesting. And I do like exploring like more terminology and more language. I think it covers a broader umbrella to call yourself a food producer, call yourself a land steward. I think that if you can kind of umbrella the term and broaden it out, I think overall it will have a lasting impact. So I don't know if I have a specific term that I like the most, but I definitely think diversifying that phrase is really important.
Right, educating people that it's more than just large scale conventional.
More than just farming. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was a really, really good question and good answers. Yeah. Does anyone have anything else that they want to say?
Because I do need to reach out to you also in reference to the insurance for markets. So, because I'll need to be getting that for this year. So.
Yeah, let's connect this week. Can you just send me some times that work for you? I'm going to the Moses conference Thursday, but if this week doesn't work, we can definitely connect the week after.
That's fine. I'll send you a text, or I'll call you.
That works. Thanks. And thanks for the feedback, Eleanor, on that. I think you're right, is that because they know that you're doing the right thing, they're not going to fund you. But that also means that they're dismissing the fact that it's really costly farming sustainable in competition to conventional farming. And so all of you guys in this call, just to give you guys some resource shout outs, there are some programs. For example, if you are farming at Big River Farms and you are not independently certified yet, so you're certified through us at Big River Farms organically, you can probably qualify for like a program where you get like 75% funding, or you get some money back. So for example, you're paying the fee to do this education and things like that, you can get that fee covered either at 90 or 100%. I'll look more into that, But then, Ku, I know that you're not farming at Big River Farms, but if you're where you're going to be farming, if you're interested in going into organic farming, you can get support and financial help with that transition. And usually, so the thing that sucks about NRCS and these types of programs is that they want you to put that money up front and then they'll reimburse you back. So I know that is a challenge and barrier for people who don't have that money up front. Even when you're trying to get like a high tunnel through the NRCS, like I learned that you have to put up $5,000 to be able to buy your high tunnel, then they'll match you and reimburse you back. But it's like, who has $5,000 just sitting in their account to get a high tunnel? You know, like that means you have to go into like farm service agency and get a micro loan, you know, to get that high tunnel in order for you to access that grant. And then once you have that, what happens when you don't know how to put up a high tunnel? NRCS doesn't provide you help with that. You have to find a way to put that up too. So there's like a lot of like balancing and understanding like the resources. It's not just about getting money to get these really big infrastructure, but you have to be able to have the funding and the energy and the time to coordinate people to help you install these things too.
Oh, cool, you're on mute.
And how and where do you get those information?
For the NRCS or for the
Oh.
natural resource conservation?
Yeah, the natural resource conservation.
Cool, I can connect you with that. So
Okay.
you can just go on their website and look at it. And I know that it's kind of hard to understand because there's this grant that I was talking about. It's called the EQIP, which is EQIP. And usually if you're a first year farmer, you probably won't qualify. But if you have been farming for a couple of years and you have really strong record, and also having your Schedule F is super important to qualify for this. And then you also got to register your farm under the Farm Service Agency. So kind of having a farm ID. So if your land hasn't been registered before to get a farm ID, then you should go get it registered just so that they have it like an acknowledgement that your land has been zoned for agricultural practices. So basically you can farm on it.
Okay.
And once you get that, then you can access resources because the Natural Resource Conservation Services is connected to Farm Service Agency, and Farm Service Agency is a portion of the United States Department of Agriculture. So I know these are like really big names in terminologies that, but you'll hear them over and over again, and don't be shy to ask questions about it. But we can definitely connect more about this. I would love to hear more about what your needs are, and that way I'll be able to connect you with the right people. And also knowing where you're farming too, that's also important because depending on the county that you're farming in, it's a different office that you're reaching out to.
Sure. What's like for most farmers who produce or CSA, what's usually the recommended path that you guys usually take? Do you guys register everything, every part of your business that you do? And do you guys apply for grants and stuff like that? Or do you guys just say, you know what, I'm independent, I'm on my own and I don't really need all those resources as an aid to help me? Or how do you guys go about that? Because, you know, I just want to know what are the possibilities and routes that you guys actually take that would help you guys be successful in your farming.
I will let the rest of the farmers answer that, but for sure, there's no problem for you as the first year, or even like as long as you're farming, to just do your taxes under your name as an individual person. And it doesn't even have to be, you can, so at the Big River Farms, we encourage all of our farmers to create a name. And that name doesn't have to be a registered name. That's just a really fun way for us to acknowledge that you've owned something. You know, that name is your name that you're owning. And so, but then my husband, Michael, can talk about like some of our feels about becoming an LLC, like some of the challenges or things that we didn't know what an LLC was. And then the rest of the farmers can share about what their preferences are too. And there's definitely, like, once you decide to register your business under something, you don't have to keep that. Like, if you don't like it this year, you can change it too. So you still have that power.
Okay.
And who are you farming alone this year?
Are you asking me?
Yep.
Well, yeah, this year, well, this year, my wife and I, we are taking over my uncle and my aunt's 5-acre farming. And we've got no experience. So we're kind of in the dark and trying to find out, scrambling to our feet to find out, get information as much as possible because we've been told that, we got to get all of our ducks in a row, and by is it March, beginning of March or end of March, we got to get all of our seeding going and all that stuff, and it's a little bit overwhelming to get it going because I've never done before, so it's kind of like, oh, where do I start? So I kind of have some idea, but ideas aren't really put into practice yet. So and then I don't want going through these training is that do I need to register everything to be able to farm or to be legit, or if I do all this, what are my are there any break evens for me even before I make any profits, or what's in for me, so I just want to find that out before doing anything that I shouldn't be doing, that way that we keep our costs down as much as possible. So that's this is our first year getting into it, and we do have 5 acres of land that we had to work with. But the thing is that like in our previous meeting where was it forget her name, where she said that in 1 acre that you could possibly make 30,000. It's like, wow, okay, so what do I need to do to get there, or what do I need to avoid, or what do I shouldn't be doing, so that I'm able to reach that. So I guess that's that. For me, there's a lot of questions that I need to know information about, so that I'm heading in the right direction. Does that answer your question?
So as a first year farmer last year, we actually, didn't, the only thing that I did was I paid to get, copyright for our name. Otherwise I didn't register our business name with the state. I still ran the business under, my social. And so you're not required to register your business before you know, start farming. But being the first year farmer, um, one of the things that if income is what you're needing to get to, there, like, you for sure will need to put a couple stuff or a couple things in your path, such as start uh, some for some markets it may already be too late, so start looking at the markets that are available and applying for it. you know um when we first went to market last year, I didn't know anything. I mean, I've gone to help my aunt, but when I went, it's already always been set up and I just help her sell, right? um and so, just going and then learning from your first couple markets, and then seeing how, because even if because last year we had Monday, we had Saturday, we had Sunday, and we had Tuesday markets, and it turned out that we actually didn't need the Tuesday market. So we actually canceled that Tuesday market. And what matters was that we got in, and if we, couldn't, if we didn't need that market anymore, you then can still say, hey, what, we're gonna not go there anymore. We have somewhere else to go, or we're doing something else. Versus you having, all these land, all these vegetables, and now know where to sell it to, and so, um, and taking classes with, Big River Farm, that's a huge, huge step already. And so you're gonna be learning a lot. And so, because everyone here, they're very helpful. Just ask if you have any questions. But yes, last year we had less than 1 acre, and we were able to, I think you were talking about Mongfa earlier. But last year was our first year going commercial. Didn't know anything either, didn't know where to start, where to market or whatnot, or even how to, like when to start planting things. I depended on, my greenhouse mates, you know, to see what they're planting and say, hey, what are you planting? I have this also. Is it time to plant that? And they will be the one telling me, guiding me and saying, oh, nope, it's too early for that, but this is what you should be planting right now. And so it was because of my, greenhouse mates that helped guide me through the season on when to plant things, and when to not plant things, and how to even transplant them into bigger pots and things like that too, and like which trays to plant them in and all that. And so
I think that for somebody new like me, I think that if all of you guys can compile some kind of like a standard guideline, or like you were saying, um, um, things that should do and should not do, or it may not be like uh it may not work for every instance, but at least it's a standard guideline that what, these works well and this doesn't, and this can be done. And like you were saying that these plants need to be planted during this time, or you start to start doing your seedlings, or or you start doing planting them directly into the ground. I think that with having that kind of information would greatly help somebody who's like me, who's never done farming, at least to have an idea. Okay, this is how most farmers approach, or this is how most farmer do it. In that way, then once we start to look at that and practice on that, then maybe like a year or two experience, then we can take what we've learned and then deviate from that with a different approach or different steps.
Do you have a good
yeah,
relationship, Ku, with your aunt and uncle?
Yes, I do.
Have you
Yes.
talked to them much about their experience with the land and like how they grow or who they sold to? It could be a good opportunity to kind of dig into that more, do some research and talk to them about their experiences, and maybe see if they have like existing wholesale buyers or customers that you could tap into and connect with, and maybe learn from them too about like what they grew or sold to them.
Yeah, we talked to them, and my uncle is a little bit more open. My aunt is not. It's harder to get information from her, but they've given us some ideas on what kind of vegetables to grow, and they already talked to some of their buyers or customers about us, and that that we will be taking over their business, and they are aware of it. But uh, the one thing that we are concerned is that we've got land, we've got customers. Can we produce? Can we produce what they want? So that's our concern, and with that, everything in the middle is kind of muddy for us because we've never done it, and to have that kind of high level of expectation from our buyer, it's kind of scary when you can't produce for them.
Yeah, I hear you on that, and that's a large part why, even though the like CSA, even though like wholesale opportunities might have existed, I could have sought them out in my first year. I just decided not to, just because if it's your first year farming, you really want to get your feet under you a little bit. You want to, feel confident about what you're doing. You want to make sure that you can deliver when you do get to the point where you're doing those contracts. And you want to make sure that, hey, yeah, last year I grew collards really well. And so this year I feel pretty confident. And I am doing a small contract with somebody and saying, yeah, I can deliver 80 pounds of collards, no problem. I was able to do that last year. So it's hard to know without actually having done it first whether or not you can do it. And you definitely don't want to overpromise something.
Yeah.
And underdeliver. Just not a good feeling for you or for your buyer.
Sure.
So yeah, for the most part, I treated my first year as just a huge learning opportunity, and tried to just get experience under me.
Sure.
I treated it that way. Just not having farm experience. I know I needed my first year just to learn.
Sure.
And just wasn't expecting a whole lot from it. So
Yeah.
that was my approach.
Sure.
It sounds like other farmers, yeah. It sounds like other farmers who have more experience farming kind of know what they're capable of already. So they'll come into it and already have 4 or 5 markets lined up, you know. It just depends on how you want to approach it for yourself.
Sure. Yeah, and the one thing that is kind of hard, like I was saying to my wife, is that my aunt and uncle doesn't keep any records. So there's not a way where you can look at the numbers and look at the any histories of how well they plant, how well are some of the plants, some of the vegetables that they plant, are they doing well, are they with all that. So there's not any numbers that you can crunch on and say, okay, if I take over, what am I looking at? What kind of vegetables that can I continue doing it? So it's kind of like passing on a business that you've got a blank slate that you don't know how to move forward with it. So I am excited because I want to move that direction because I work in the big corporate world and I want to get away from that. There's so much red tape, so much headaches, and so many meetings. It's like I feel like I'm ready to take a break and move on to a different kind of career. So
just know that this first year, it is all about just the learning experience. So,
sure.
Being that it is also your first year farming, you've got to, stick with it because, oh my gosh, the rewards from it is endless. My husband who never farms, when he goes out to the farm with me, he's always saying, he's, it's the one place that he can just be relaxed and just, forget about the world and just be at peace with everything, and so
Definitely.
that with this first year, learn as much as you can, set goals, but also set it to where if you fail, that you're learning from that, and it's not a failure that's gonna make you totally quit or never touch dirt again.
Yeah.
And so I'm excited for you, especially with that you've already got the land there going on. That's something that we're still trying to get to, and so yeah, just make sure you talk to everyone.
Sure. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, I mean, also Big River Farms, we have so many different planting resources to provide you with. And I don't know if you saw what Kajua said in the chat, but she said maybe consider cover cropping 4 acres and farm only 1 acre to build up that organic matter, and also to build out your farm managing skills and markets. And then we can also further discuss with you about cover cropping and what that is, and help you kind of develop more of a fertility plan, if that's something that you'd be interested in.
I am. I'm interested in learning as much as I can.
Yeah, oh, that's awesome. Yeah, we're happy you're here.
Sure, thank you.
Yeah, so we have about, just a minute left. And I think that this was so great. I'm so happy we were able to have this. And I'm excited to give this recording to those that weren't able to make it. And I'm so thankful for you all for being here, and for Dee and Michael and Eleanor and Pierce for sharing their experiences farming. I just think that this was so valuable, and I learned so much. And oh, sorry, there's just Matt has a question in the chat for Ku. And I get distracted by the chat sometimes.
No, we don't. They don't own the land. They rent it from a farmer who used to farm. I think they used to grow tomatoes and potatoes. So they're leasing out the lands, and whoever comes first gets gets rent whatever piece of land that is available. But according to what I know, their 5 acres are the best part of the land. So yeah, we are looking. I am looking. My wife and I, we are looking at. We are debating. We're looking at 2 pieces of land. One is in Lindstrom, which is a 10-acre, and the other one is down by close a little bit farther down to Lakeville, all the way down there, and that's a 10 piece of acre also. But we're debating because we've been asking around, and some friends and relatives are saying that if you're growing this plant, it's better to do it up north. If you're growing this kind of plant, you're better doing the south. So we're debating what do we need to grow, and what kind of customer are we catering the vegetables to. So that's where we're kind of debating, and that's what's stopping us to purchase the land. So hopefully we can get that settled down.
Yeah, where is your farm currently?
You know where is in between Now Then and was it Now Then and I believe was it let me look at it, the map. And Now Then. Let's see, Andover.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Nice. Yeah. Well, yeah, maybe, yeah, there could be a time that you and I and Kajua possibly the 3 of us could meet, and we could discuss some of your ideas and goals that you have. Yeah, I think that would be really nice.
Sure. Yeah. I would love to look forward for that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'm excited for you and this journey that you're on. And yeah, and I'm so happy that we were able to have this, and I think it's so valuable to exchange knowledge and share story. It's such a rich time to share story before we start growing.
Sure.
And especially during this time during the winter, I think it's a really beautiful time to have that period of time to share story and learn before we start getting in the ground and start growing things. So thank you all for being here, and I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. Stay warm, and I know tomorrow's supposed to be warmer, so we can look forward to that.
Yeah, thank you so much for creating this and allowing us to share. So appreciated.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you both for sharing. Yeah, it was really beautiful to hear your experiences.
You guys have a wonderful weekend now.
Bye-bye.
I need to
Good seeing
find
y'all.
where I got these corn pens so I can get it for us.
Corn pin. Okay.
Oh my gosh. I love that.
Bye. Thanks for putting it
Bye,
together,
everybody.
Becca.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thanks,
see ya.
Becca.
See ya. Bye, Kazua.
Bye.
Bye, Warris. Thanks for being here.